over 25 years of rich industry experience, our upcoming keynote speaker is widely acclaimed for his delivery management, customer relationships management, and P&L management across verticals, technologies, and geographies. Currently serving as the Chief Operating Officer and Executive Board member of LTI, he has been spearheading LTI's quest to power the breakaway enterprises. He has been driving sustained profitable growth and strengthening solution offerings at LTI for over a year now. Prior to joining LTI, he was the Global Delivery Head and Senior Vice President in Cognizant Technology Solutions. He spent nearly 2 decades with the company in key leadership roles across global delivery, strategy, client engagement management, and product incubation in North America, Europe, and India. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to bring to your screens the one and only Mr. Nachiket Deshpande.
Thank you for inviting me to the DevOps conference today. And what I want to talk about is how do we all prepare ourselves as we navigate what's next in front of us. I will share my presentation now. All of us will agree that we are living in unprecedented times. Last 18 months, we have seen a significant impact to lives and livelihoods around us all over the world. And while that has been a very saddening experience for all of us, we all have someone close to us in our family, in our colleagues, or in our neighborhoods who are impacted by this pandemic directly. At the same time, what it has also done, it has also had a profound impact onto businesses all around the world. Every single industry, every size of a company, and each and every geography is not insulated by this impact. And what this impact has done is it has forced each and every enterprise to reimagine their operating model, reimagine their business processes, and also reimagining their core value proposition for their customers. If you actually see, these shifts are not new. We as a mankind have gone through many such transitions in the past, whether it was from craftsmanships to industrialization to a digital era, and from digital era, what I would call into a cognitive era. Each of these shifts have disrupted businesses and business models dramatically. While the digital adoption or cognitive technologies were already picking up pace in the last few years, pandemic has acted like a black swan event, which has created a acute need for the acceleration for these adoptions. And that's really why I would call it a great restructuring, where every single business of every size has to now rethink and reimagining their business. Each of these seismic shifts have always created unprecedented value creation opportunities for businesses, for people, and for technologies to really play an important pivotal role in managing that change for the business and for the society. Now, I do feel that this impact created by the pandemic will also create an unprecedented opportunity for value creation as we help each other and we help our customers navigate this change. Unlike before, the key contributing factor for this helping them navigate this change is going to be technology led. I would feel that there's never been a better time to be in the technology industry than today. And that's why the 2020s, you can call it a tech decade. And as all businesses look at technology as a pivotal force, helping them navigate this next challenge, it will also result into a significant investments being made in technologies and technology adoptions around the world. As you can see, the data from IDC suggests that just next year or in next couple of years, the spend on digital transformation related technology adoption is likely to reach as high as $6.8 trillion. What this will do is it will create significant opportunities for all of us to innovate and help many industries around the world navigate this new change. But as we look at the impact of this technology, as we look at the impact of how the businesses are getting reimagined, how the business processes are getting reimagined, we also need to look at what has changed or what impact has this change had in all aspects of our business. And when I look at that impact, I feel the impact is there for the work that we do, the impact is there on the workforce that we have, and the impact is there on the workplace as we knew it in the past. So if I look at work itself, accelerating digital adoption, you could see that it was an attribute of breakaway enterprises. It was an attribute before where people who managed to do this well managed to separate themselves from the pack and were considered leaders in their respective industry segments. But what this disruption has done, that it's become a question of survival for most organizations. And hence, that definition of the work in the context of digital adoption is no longer a breakaway attribute, but it has become a must do and a survival attribute. It has also meant that the businesses had a very set view on this technology in terms of what's core to them and what's context, what they would like to have in house, what they would like to outsource, what they would like to be done closer to them versus going where the talent is available. And all those models that were prevalent pre pandemic have gone through a significant rethink as this becomes one of the key drivers for the reset of their business. So increasingly now work is becoming in the smaller units. We're no longer looking at 2 and 5 year transformation programs, but we are looking at a agile adoption across the board with 2 or 4 week sprint where newer functionalities, newer solutions are taken to the market. We are also looking at the teams becoming very smaller and autonomous, right? It's a member of 5 or 7 or 8 member teams which are delivering certain features and value to the end customers in across the world. And it has also become extremely distributed where you are no longer looking at bringing talent to where the work is, but you are looking at taking work to where the talent is today. And that has significantly impacted how we think about work and how the work is actually getting done in each of our enterprises as well. Now let's look at workforce, right? It's what this pandemic taught us is that workforce by define will be anywhere and you will have access to anyone around the world that can contribute. And one of the impact within how you actually look at your workforce has also been in skilling. If you look at most of these enterprises, all of us in the past had very defined skilling, upskilling programs where we wanted to look at cross section of our population in our companies, and we had a roadmap to skill them in a particular direction. We had a roadmap to upskill and cross skill a set of people in a particular direction. That approach to skilling has significantly changed, where now, because the content as well as the what you want to learn is available freely across the internet, the learning has become continuous. Learning has become more pull based. It's based on how the individual feels what he or she needs to brush up today, based on what they are doing and what is needed for them to get their job done. It's also become bite sized. These are 5 and 10 and 15 minute capsules in which you are learning concepts or applications or newer technologies. And it has also become very personalized in a sense the path you take to a particular proficiency is very unique to you based on your background, your experiences, your proficiencies, your likes and dislikes. And that's a fundamental shift in how we look at workforce related investments going forward as well. The engagement with the workforce has, of course, gotten changed. We all had a very in-office centered engagement constructs, like whether it was town halls, whether it is get-togethers, branding your office premises, having sort of meeting your colleagues in the office and going together on lunches and dinners. Some of these elements will definitely stay and are very much needed, but a large part of your engagement with the workforce, with your colleagues, with your teams have also become online. The engagement has become asynchronous. In a sense, it's not when you're all together on that platform, right? But it is different people are scheduling their work times based on their convenience and their other responsibilities that they're trying to balance. And hence, this online asynchronous engagement and experience is very important for us to keep in mind when we plan as to how we get together, how we get to know each other, and how we engage with our teams. Significant impact, I would say, amongst all of this has also happened to our workplace, and it is still evolving. We moved from the largely a physical world where almost every one of us used to come to office to suddenly a 100% virtual world where for the last 15 or 18 months we're all working virtually from our respective homes, to most likely a hybrid world, which will be a combination of both of them, or best of both worlds, if you will, is what it's evolving. When you're looking at it, and if I were to give example from my own company, we went from being in 30 different offices in 10 cities in the world to potentially 31,000 offices, which was everybody's home, and distributed across 100 cities in the world. So that distributed locations is a fundamental part of our planning as we plan for this new hybrid world. And our workstations, if you look at how our office space were configured before, it was like an I place, as I could call it, right? Where you had your own cubicle, you had your own environment, which was personalized. You will have your family photographs, you will have some of your own artifacts on your table. You personalize your desk. But as you now look at this hybrid world, you're going to move towards what I call a V places, where offices are going to be likely to be used more for interactive, where you're going to come together as a team, where you're going to brainstorm about something, where you're going to do whiteboarding sessions to come up with a newer idea. So most of your office space that you would use for will end up being a shared or a V space. And all of our physical layouts of our offices, our viewpoint about those offices will need a fundamental rethink as we look at this migration from I space to V space. Also, the technologies that we have used now need to sort of move away from what I used to call it a Sunday night experience to Monday morning experience gap, where the personal experiences that we all had in our homes in terms of devices we use and technology that we use versus what we ended up using when we got into the office, there was a gap in that. And the gap was probably, at times needed. There are a lot of security considerations, all other nuances that played out. But what has now the pandemic has done is it has accelerated that investment at that journey to make smarter office spaces as well as seamless experience, whether you are at home, whether you are in office, or whether you are in transit. Your experience related to workstation, workplace is now become genuinely omni-channel, and it is no longer isolated, or it's no longer very distinct when you are in office versus you're not in office. And that has significantly impacted how we look at all of these, right? So as we navigate these changes, both for our employees as well as if you are in the business of providing these technology solutions, your customers are demanding these changes. So all these changes are having impact in how we design solutions, how we design our technology stacks, and where we invest, right? So these digital paradigms, both for your customers and for your employees, has significantly changing the where the enterprises are investing and how fast are they investing. So what has that resulted into? That's essentially resulted into across the enterprise, you will see there has been a significant investment in making agile and DevOps adoption. And different industries, different individual enterprises are at different stage of journeys, but you would hardly find anybody who have not started this journey in some shape or form in their businesses. There's a significant investment going on data, AI, and ML infrastructure, shortening those data to decision cycles, monetizing your data, knowing where your data is, having trust in the quality of your data, and so on and so forth. Cloud adoption probably was the single most differentiators that the enterprises felt in their ability to cope up with this pandemic. The enterprises which had already started or completed holistic cloud adoption journeys were able to cope up with this shift in the operating model at the beginning of the pandemic far better than the enterprises which were either in the initial stages of their journey or yet to start their journey. So is one area where there is a significant urgency for all the enterprises around the world is to complete or start or accelerate their journey around cloud. And of course, there is a significant impact on or significant investment that's also happening on a lot of edge computing related infrastructure as well, especially in the industrial world, especially in the industries which are at the cusp of this physical and digital paradigms. And you see a lot of investment happening in that. And all of this is essentially focused on how, as an enterprise, do I achieve this accelerated digital adoption. At the same time, if I look back, the data that you can see from the Forbes here on the slide, that almost 50 to 70% of digital transformation projects have actually not yielded the desired business case. And this is a 2018 data. I'm sure the numbers are very similar in 2019 and 2020 as well, with, of course, some areas improving more than the others. And if you look at the impact of these projects, which did not meet the business case, and I would not call them as failures, but did not meet the business case, is about $900 billion. And when we talk about, so far we talked about the impact in each of these businesses, we talked about how important it is from each of the enterprises to have this technology as a fundamental factor transforming and rethinking their business models. People are making investment into the right areas. We talked about agile DevOps, we talked about cloud, we talked about data, AI, ML, we talked about edge. Then having made investments in the right areas, when there is a realization across the enterprise, all the way from the board to the line management, that we need to adopt these technologies in order to reimagine our business, why are we still seeing not such a great success rate in these technologies transformation? And this is my interpretation of what I have looked at in my experience dealing with many customers around the world, that the failure rate is inversely proportional to the goal clarity that you need to have across the organization. And that is a very, very important element when I said across the organization and across the ecosystem. It's not about only one part of your organization, whether it's your technology organization or whether it's your business organization, which is being focused or aligned on this tech transformation goal, but the entire organization, every support function from finance to facilities to HR to marketing to business to technology to every part of your enterprise needs to have those goal alignments. It is also important to have a discipline and rigor on execution, because these technology transformations are significant change initiatives. And every change initiative is hard to do. You're going to have a lot of difficulties, especially in the initial phases of these change initiatives, in order to see the final results. And hence, a discipline and rigor about execution and seeing these change initiatives through across your organization is very important. And I would say, last but not the least, is that many times, while there is a clarity of goal, there is a rigor in execution, we fail to look at dependencies within the organization and, most importantly, across your entire value chain that actually results into less efficient outcome, or sometimes not able to give you the desired business case that we talked about. So if you were to take any examples of these, right, many organizations, I would say a few years ago, a digital adoption was a technology led agenda, whereas CIOs, or in some organizations, CTOs and CDOs, were propagating this adoption of cloud or adoption of data and analytics across their organization, or adoption of agile and DevOps practices were isolated within the IT organizations or technology or engineering organization, as the case may be. But over the last few years, there is a significant progress that have happened on this goal alignment, where now many organizations you see adopting enterprise agile paradigms, where everybody from the business to the support organizations are all adopting these agile methodologies. Everybody is coming together in this product centric mindset, in this human centric design mindset, in ensuring that the business to technology to support, all of them are all aligned on what they want to achieve. And that is helping them get the speed. Execution rigor, I think, as you can imagine, when you're spending $900 billion across the world, there will be a lot of pressure on getting the execution right from your stakeholders, from your investors. So there's a lot that is being made. The organization structures have been re-looked at in order to give you that rigor and the execution and the mandate and the clarity of accountability in that. But I still think there is a lot of work that needs to happen in managing the dependencies and the ecosystem dependencies very well. So how do you really do it? See, in my mind, the any change initiatives, and especially technology change initiatives, are like orchestras, where while we continue to focus on individual instrument, individual artist, and their own piece and their own quality of production on their instrument, it is equally important to tune it together like an orchestra to get the melody that you want. And that tuning of all of the orchestra together is what we probably need to now continue to focus on disproportionately to improve our track record of this business case achievement on digital transformation. So how do we really do it, right? And this is my take on how we should go about doing that. Number one, you got to get to zero silos. Trim the silos you have. And for that, it's important that you bring together teams through organization construct, teams common goal through common goals, through alignment on objectives, incentives, KRAs, and all of the other organizational processes and instruments you have. But it is also important that you bring that in practice. So the leaders need to play a significant role in ensuring that the silos across the organizations are not entertained, not allowed, and you continue to focus on this one team approach within your organization, as well as with the ecosystem of partners that you need to succeed. Second, these transformations are happening around us when technology and possibilities with technologies are changing every day. So any initiatives you start in the beginning, by the time you end it, there are lots of things that have come in new. And hence your team and every individual needs to have an approach of zero stagnation, right? So individuals need to continue to learn. Your architectures need to continue to adopt. Your processes needs to continue to stay agile and nimble to adopt to newer paradigms. And all your decisions around schedules and budgets and choices need to have that agility in them so that there is no stagnation as you go through these change. It is also important that we, with the kind of speed with which we want to execute these technology changes, I think getting first time right has become even more important, because you want to now, because of the speed at which you are taking all of your features, products, services all the way up to your end consumers, it is important that you give them confidence on the quality of that output. And hence, having that first time right approach where quality is embedded in how you engineer and design things is also going to be very critical. It's also important for us to make sure that as we go through these changes, we do not create or add to the technical debt and take every opportunity to eliminate the technical debt that we might have already accumulated. And that comes in the form of technology choices, it comes in the form of programming practices, it comes in the form of the efficiency with which you individual programs or configures, and all the elements and decisions every day every developer, every tester, every designer, every product owner takes, keeping that in mind, that I got to ensure that I don't add to the tech debt and I take every opportunity to eliminate the tech debt is an important thing. And it's important to engineer to operate. And what I mean by that is that I think the modern systems need to be designed in the way where there is zero operations expectation. The systems have to be self-healing, self-correcting, self-diagnosing, and so on and so forth. Because it is important the amount of technology that is getting embedded in every product and every service. Do not want to create a significant operations expenditure overhead for all of the businesses model. So it's important that the way we engineer eliminate or reduces the significant need to operate these technologies as we go along. And most importantly, the advancement and innovations in technologies have made it possible. So it is our responsibility to now give systems which actually are capable of doing that as we go along. And I would say, last but not the least, is we ensure that we have security by design in every aspect of technology implementation, technology development that we take in our hand. So, trimming the security debt or having zero security debt is another very important thing to ensure that what we develop will be able to not only meet the business case, but also will have a significant resilience to the businesses as the business become more and more technology dependent going forward. So this is what I would say I think will help us finally get at an agile product mindset, which is focused on flow-based value, elastic workforce with innovation focus, talked about autonomous systems with DevSecOps, API-based cloud-native modular architectures that allows you to scale, security embedded in every areas of IT. And that's really how I believe we can significantly change the track record of success and business meeting business case as we take on large scale digital transformations in every business, in every industry around the world. But it's also important for us to keep one more thing in mind. While we are doing all this, while we are taking significant steps forward in terms of what this technology can do in solving the challenges as well as capitalizing on the opportunities that are presented by this restructuring, are we doing this responsibly? I think we're seeing the significant impacts of environment, climate change all around us, more accelerated. The impact is more visible and more accelerated in the last few years than it was. And while technology is playing an important role in the larger sustainability themes, the technology itself, are we doing it responsibly? Are we leaving a legacy behind where we believe we are not adding to the environment problems, but at least helping solve it? And some facts and statistics for you. A program written in Python consumes 75 to 76 times more energy when it executes as compared to a program written in C. A training of an AI model, it produces a CO2 footprint which is 5 times higher than the lifetime emission of a car. If you look at data centers today, consume almost 2% of global electricity today. By 2030, with the pace of technology adoption, it's likely to be 5 times the current usage. And Bitcoin mining with the underlying blockchain DLT technologies consumes energy which is comparable to that of the country of New Zealand. So each of these technology adoptions and each of these technology inventions also comes with its own price it has on the environmental resources. So what can we do about it? I think it's important for us to relook at our software engineering practices, and more importantly, decisions that we make across our technology adoption programs, to keep in mind that are we looking at the carbon footprint element as one of the factors that influences our decision. And that realization is very, very important in my view. We got to look at that when we make architecture choices. Because moving towards event-based computing and serverless computing has a significant impact in reducing the efficiency and increasing the efficiency and reducing the carbon footprint of the technologies that we are adopting. It is important to look at move to cloud also from the point of view of environment footprint, because many cloud providers today are significantly focusing on moving towards 100% green energy options over the number of years. And some hyperscalers are ahead in this journey, like GCP, as compared to the others, but everyone is focusing on getting there. So moving your own workload to cloud also will have a significant impact, where you as a individual enterprise might not be able to adopt 100% green energy, but you can move to a cloud which is adopting to 100% green energy. And by that, you can eliminate almost 82% of your carbon emission that you contribute in your own technology adoptions. I gave examples of coding languages choices when you make. You can keep that in mind as to, am I choosing right technologies for the right kind of applications based on the CPU runtime load, as well as the reduction in the energy consumption that it will have based on some of those decisions. How do I look at process standardizations and measurement? Right? How do I look at this being measured across my technology choices life cycle? So is the environment footprint an important parameter when I am deciding an hyperscaler? Is the environment footprint an important parameter when I am making architectural choices? Today, it's probably not even a point of consideration, right? It needs to be included in our evaluation sheets and continue to have equal weightage to the other business trade-off, economic trade-off, and ease of adoption trade-offs that we make. I think this also needs to become an important part of our process standardization and measurement. And second, last thing I would put is also the AI. That we talked about, what is the cost of training an AI model, right? So some amount of reuse in making sure we adopt to the AI models that are already trained, looking at different ways in which you can train your AI model, how you can make it progressively. There are lots of research being done on this topic as well, and adopting these things and having this as an important criteria is an important thing for us to going forward as well. So that's what I would believe is, as we stare at the opportunity created for all of us who are in this technology business by the current restructuring era, let's navigate this new normal with all the focus on technology and problems it can solve, but let's do it also responsibly. Thank you all.